is that Jesus is raising this rather delicate question about his own identity, and maybe even framing it in who do people say the Son of Man is, rather than who I am, precisely because this is so politically explosive. Well, here we are. Gavin, thank you very much for being willing to be on this vlog now that Bishop Martin is on holiday.
Big seat to sit in.
Great to have you with us. And today we're looking at Matthew 16, which is the confession of Peter, where Peter says who Jesus is. A massively important passage in Matthew. So what are your thoughts about this passage?
I love this passage because I can really engage with it as if I was there. And so what you've got is the disciples, we're probably travelling along with Jesus, and he's already challenged them just before this moment about their lack of faith. And then he suddenly turns and says, who do you say that the Son of Man is? Now, I've always thought that's a bit of a strange question to ask, because it's a bit like you saying, who is the Bishop of Dunwich? Who is the Bishop of Dunwich, Mike? Not who is Mike Harrison.
Yeah, no, it's a weird turn of phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, so the question's interesting, but the response is brilliant. Here is a group of guys who have spent a lot of their life walking and travelling with Jesus, seeing everything that he's doing, and then when he asks them one of the key questions, they duck it.
Yeah.
And they start talking about what other people said without really giving a response themselves.
Elijah, Jeremiah, usual list.
Yeah. So we'll give them a little bit of slack because the question was a little bit challenging and a little bit different. But then, of course, he turns to the teacher's pet, the star pupil, and asks Peter. And Peter gives his response.
Yeah. Now, it's also interesting that he asks this question in Caesarea Philippi.
Yeah.
Now, Caesarea Philippi is way up north, away from the power centres. So one of the things that this makes me think is that Jesus is raising this rather delicate question about his own identity, and maybe even framing it in who do people say the Son of Man is, rather than who I am, precisely because this is so politically explosive.
Yeah.
That maybe I need to be away with my disciples from the urban centres, the centres of political power, to actually look at this a bit further. And as you say, what happens next then is that Peter confesses who Jesus is. What do you make of that when he says, you are the Messiah, you are the anointed king?
I think it's two things for me particularly. One is that he recognises Jesus for who he is, and Jesus says that's beyond a human recognition, that there's something really special. That's a spiritual recognition of who Jesus is. And then he makes this amazing response to Peter, which I think has been interpreted in history in lots of different ways. Now, you'll be better at the old Greek and Hebrew than me, but I love this sense of Peter as Petros and the rock as Petra, kind of the Greek using the masculine and the feminine terms, which shows there is a difference. Yeah. And for me, it's Jesus saying, Peter, on that belief, on that confession that you've made, I will build my church, my gathering of people in the future who gather in my name. Not this sense of a physical thing built on a physical thing, but that sense of a group of people, a future built on that profession and confession of faith. Yeah,
that's right. I think, it's Bishop John Ryle, he was former Bishop of Liverpool, I think, who said that actually the rock on which this is founded is the confession, is the understanding of who Jesus is. Yeah. So we can participate in that rock-like foundation as we confess it. And over the lockdown, I've been looking at John's Gospel quite a lot, and that comes back again and again and again. What is it the crowd asks to be doing to be doing the work of God? And Jesus says, to believe in the one whom he sent, to understand who I am. So there's something absolutely critical and life-changing, because if we understand Jesus as the King, the one who has authority and ultimate authority for us, that completely changes us in terms of what we understand humanity to look like, to be aiming for, and the such like. So yeah, the rock. And then a curious ending to the passage.
The messianic mystery.
Tell us what you mean by that.
So Jesus at the end saying, we've had this conversation, Peter's recognised me for who I am, the Christ, the Messiah, but don't tell anyone. Which kind of goes counter to what we kind of think is our role sometimes, and what the role of the disciples might have seen as, which is kind of sharing that good news and telling more people. So a couple of theories on that I've kind of read about in the past and engaged with, but the one that I particularly love, probably because of my role as a sort of a strategy kind of guy, is that Jesus had a plan, and that there was a time for everything within the plan of God for when he was revealed more widely as the Messiah.
Yeah.
And that certain things had to fall into place. And if he'd have revealed in that culture that sense of Messiah at that time, then it may have put things a bit out of kilter from what the major plan was.
And that fits with the way in which this passage is embedded between two other passages. Just before it, Jesus has spoken about, didn't you understand about the loaves and the fishes, and these miracles and what that says about me? But after this passage, he then talks about how he must die, go to Jerusalem and be crucified. And unless you're holding both of those elements together, the remarkable lordship of creation that Jesus has, and also the suffering servant, you ain't going to understand me, which is why, as you say, as of yet, we need to keep this under wraps because you don't quite get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gavin, thank you very much.